Isn't it nice this time of year in the mid to late summer to open up that tackle box and realize that everything in front of you is a possibility? Well, that's what summer fishing is. It means the tackle box is wide open. If you line up 100 bass anglers, you might just get 50 or 60 different answers as far as what their favorite summer lure and summer presentation is, and that's what makes this time of year so amazing. Well, today we're going to go over 5 questions that you can ask yourself. So within the first few minutes of your fishing adventure, you can narrow down what lure to pick out of that tackle box. The first thing I always ask myself when I pull up to the ramp is, what is the water clarity? If it is dirty or got some stain to it, perfect. I know I'm going to be fishing pretty shallow, and I'm going to choose lures accordingly. I'm going to go with a lure that has some bulk to it or size to it. As far as weight goes, I'm going to pick something a little bit lighter so it has a slower rate of fall, so those bass have a better chance to pick it up and see it in those dirtier water conditions. If the water is clear, well, then I'm in the mindset that there's a really good chance I'm going to be fishing a little bit deeper. I know that color choice is going to be critical. I've got to go with those natural types of presentations. And if it's a bluebird day, well, then you can bet I'm probably going to have to be right down there on the bottom when I've got a clear water situation. Clear water also means there's a pretty good chance there's going to be a healthy population of some sort of vegetation in the lake or river. Well, that means that my lures are going to be something that works weed beds efficiently. Maybe it's a swim jig, maybe it's a regular flipping jig, or I'm going to bring a top water over the top of those weed beds. So that's the first question. What is the water clarity? And that already narrows down what's in our tackle box. The second thing to ask yourself that I just mentioned a second ago had to do with pressure. Is it a bluebird day? Is it a high pressure day? Or is it cloudy and a low pressure day? If it's a bluebird sky, boom, right down there on the bottom, guarantee it. If it's a low pressure situation, I'm probably going to pick more of a horizontal lure like your crankbaits, spinnerbaits, those types of things. So that's question number 2, high pressure or low pressure. Now, once I'm on the water or walking down the shoreline, the next question I asked, or the third one, is, what does a main forage base look like? Now, traditionally in the mid to late summer, the bass usually start to key in on bait fish, whether that's shad, minnows, sunfish, whatever it might be, because they will often pull out way offshore and follow those schools of bait. So if my lake or my water that I'm fishing on, bait fish is the main forage base, well, now I know what type of color do I need to match, what type of size do I need to match. Are the sunfish really big? There's some great big swim baits that I could be throwing. Or maybe the lake or river that I'm on, crawfish is still the main forage base, especially if I'm in a place where there are a ton of rocks. Well, that definitely tells me I'm going to be fishing in and around those rocks in the riprap, and now I need to figure out what color phase those crawfish are in. This time of year, are they going to be more of the greens or the browns? Or if we get late enough into the fall, the crawfish actually have a second breeding season, which means that they will molt again and get into those oranges and reds as well. But probably in your July and August, you're going to be going some sort of brown or green. So if I can find some crawfish, I'm going to try to match their color pattern. The fourth question I'm going to ask myself, is there any wind? If it's a windy day, you can better believe I'm going to do my best to fish the windiest bank possible. Wind does so much to help the fishing. One, it gets the food chain activated. There's going to be small bait fish up there, trying to get those dislodged, zooplanktons that are, floating around now in the water column. There could be crawdads that are kicked up out of the rocks. So wind is always a good thing. That tells me when I look at that tackle box full of lures, if there's wind, I'm probably using a horizontal type of presentation and bait. Now, if there's no wind whatsoever, odds are that means once again I'm going to be down there in the bottom, or I'm going to be picking apart some sort of really thick cover, whether that's weed beds, brush piles, docks, whatever it might be. But boy, if there's wind, that is a huge plus. And if it's really windy, odds are you might be the only one that is out there attacking that windy bank, because other anglers are going to try to get out of it because boat positioning can be really difficult. And the fifth and last question I'm going to ask myself, is there natural current? If there is current on the water that I am fishing, especially in these hot months, you can better believe that is exactly where I want to be. The current makes bass fishing much more predictable. It puts the fish where they're looking into it, upstream into the current. The food is washing down to it. They're going to be either on the front side of a current break in the small eddy pool that forms there when they're aggressively feeding, and when they're more resting or loafing, they're going to pull around to the backside, but I know where they are located. Now, if I don't have natural current, I'm going to try to find some other sort of current. Just like I mentioned earlier with the wind, wind can create some really strong current, especially in some neck down and funnel type areas. And if I don't have that, especially if it's a weekend, I'm going to check out some boat wakes. I have had phenomenal days where boat wakes create just enough current to really turn the bass on. Speaking of boat wakes, if you want to watch a video on how fishing boat wakes can really help your day, especially on a weekend, go ahead and check this one out right here. And hey, don't forget to go out and encourage someone today. You never know how you might just change their life. For the Bass Fishing Life, I'm your host, Steve Rogers.